with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, at this point, I'm going to adjourn the voting meeting that we've just conducted, and I'm going to move into the informational briefing that we will now have on House Bill 1701. At this time, I'm going to ask Representative Clauser to come forward. Representative Clauser to come forward. It's House Bill 1701, and it's legislation that deals with rural regional community college, establishing a pilot program for these underserved counties. So we're delighted to have you with us this morning. Oh, and there's also with Representative Clauser, Mr. Richard E. McDowell, President Emeritus and Associate Professor of the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford and Chairman of the Upper Allegheny Education Consortium. So welcome, gentlemen, and at this time the Chair recognizes Representative Clauser for comments on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you and also Chairman Roebuck for holding this informational meeting this morning on a proposal that I think could greatly benefit rural Pennsylvania. House Bill 1701 and its sister legislation, Senate Bill 1000. You'll see in your packet there's some information, some testimony that was provided, and it's labeled Senate Bill 1000. That was provided to the Senate Education Committee recently, but the bills are identical at this point, and appreciate your consideration. Senate Bill 1000 and House Bill 1701 seeks to create a rural community college pilot program in an 11-county underserved region in northwestern and north central Pennsylvania. This is an area of the Commonwealth that's about the size of the state of New Jersey. It has over 450,000 people, but absolutely no community colleges. And it's an area, as I said, that's underserved, and it's an area that desperately needs additional opportunities. And I think that the members of this committee certainly know how important community colleges are. And through this pilot program, I think we could bring much-needed community college services to northwestern Pennsylvania. The bills were introduced in response to a 2011 study by the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee, which looked at all aspects of this situation and found that there are 26 rural counties in Pennsylvania, and of those 26, 25 counties have no community colleges. And I think that that's a very striking realization. You know, back in the 1960s, when the State Board of Education created community colleges, they actually envisioned 28 community colleges serving the Commonwealth. And we know thus far that there are currently only 14. So, and you can see in the handout that was in your packet, there's actually a map of the area that we're looking at, a very huge area in northwestern and north central Pennsylvania that, as I said, is very underserved. Rural youth from that area, if they do seek community college classes outside the region, have to pay twice as much as students in the Commonwealth that have close access to a public community colleges. And higher tuition and greater travel distances can easily put a community college out of reach for many students in the Commonwealth. And Pennsylvania is one of only 3 states that does not have statewide community college coverage. So in an area like this in northwestern Pennsylvania, where you have declining population, certainly, especially amongst our youth, lower than average income, shrinking job opportunities, it's vitally important to rebuilding rural Pennsylvania that we bring those opportunities to our youth in rural PA. Without programs like this in rural PA, with limited educational offerings in technology, healthcare, and business, we're missing that middle rung of opportunities for our students. I also think that it's a fairness and equity issue with students in many other parts of the Commonwealth having access to community colleges. It's only fair that students in rural PA also have those opportunities. So I think that this is a very important thing. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the legislation. As Mr. Chairman, as you noted, Dr. Richard McDowell is here with me today. He's a native and lifelong resident of McKean County, and also the former president of the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford. He knows the value of a quality education, and he's been on the forefront of spearheading this legislation. So I'm going to turn it over to him next to, with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, to talk more about this this proposal, and then we'd both be glad to answer any questions.
At this time, the chair recognizes Mr. McDowell for comments.
Good. Well, let me thank Mr. Clymer, Representative Clymer, and certainly Representative Causer for introducing this bill, and I'm very pleased to be before the committee today. And I will add that I was fortunate to come back to northwestern Pennsylvania, come back to my McKean County, and I've spent 37 years there, spent the rest of my life there, 37 years with the University of Pittsburgh, of which 29 were of president. Let me begin, though, with two what I consider to be fundamental truths. I think history has shown that not only is education absolutely essential for a democracy, but the economic vitality of that democracy is very much impacted by the levels of education that we have. The second truth that exists is the American higher education system is probably the best in the world, in spite of all the flaws that it has. In America, the higher education system, its tiers of pricing and its tiers of admission standards. And what I mean by that, we have community colleges, we have baccalaureate colleges, and we have private universities. And then also the various program levels that we have in American higher education. We can have certificates, we can have associate degrees, we can have baccalaureate, go to a master's, and we go have a PhD. So there's a kind of a continuum. That coupled with the fact that we have a private-public partnership in Pennsylvania, in America, gives a very competitive nature to the American higher education system. But what we have in rural Pennsylvania, however, though, are some very gaps. As Representative Causer has already pointed out, if you look at the sheet that's in your, and I'll refer to this again, if you look at the sheet that I have right here, I think, and Representative Causer just mentioned this, if you look to the lower right-hand corner, it shows the lack of community colleges in our region, and I'd like to point out that rural-urban gap is significant. And let me talk just a little bit about what the importance of community college education is. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but yet at the same time, I think I'll continue on and do so, preach to the choir. Community colleges are different than colleges and universities. We both do a very significant job. We at colleges and universities are really, our emphasis is on the degree, is on the discipline, is on the major. When you look at a community college, their interest is on the individual student. So community colleges really deal with individual students and making sure that they can get through that one-year certificate or two-year associate degree program. We don't have access to that in rural Pennsylvania. Another major factor is what we in education call career ladders. We want to be able to take students from high school and move them through a career ladder of programs all the way through a PhD if they have that kind of. What is lacking in rural Pennsylvania, though, is that middle rung, which Representative Causer mentioned. That's what we call that middle rung ladder, which is the associate degree. There are no associate degrees in that area, or a very limited number of associate degrees in the area. The third area, which is very important, is that what about workforce development? Whole 11 counties, or all of rural Pennsylvania, has no access to any kind of workforce development. So when American Refining Group or the Corning Foundation or any other business industry in that 11 counties needs to upgrade their job skills, where do they go? They don't go anywhere. What they have to do is they have to fulfill those jobs with basically unskilled or underskilled employees, because there's no training that's available in that area. Let me move to the sheet and give you one more fact. Again, all these statistics that I'll be giving today and what's in that map have come from the budget Legislative Budget and Finance Committee report. But one fact is that if we look at the median income of working adults with associate degrees in Pennsylvania, they have a 50% higher salary rate than a high school graduate. But we have 92% of those holding associate degrees come from urban areas. So that income disparity, it really does exist. And if you go to this sheet again, if you go to the lower left-hand corner, I'll tell you why that disparity exists. If you go to the very, very bottom of the totals, it shows that these are the number of associate degrees which are granted. It shows that there was only 6% of the associate degrees which were being offered. This is 2010 statistics. Only 6% of the population from rural areas were enrolled in associate degrees. We have 94% are from the more urban areas. The other interesting statistic of this is that if you look at, there are 68,000 which are enrolled totally in Pennsylvania. 62,000 of those, or 90%, are in the community colleges, which are all located in urban areas. The other interesting fact of this table is that only 1%, the community colleges, the existing community colleges in Pennsylvania, are only serving 1% of that population, which is also staggering. And so that's one of the reasons for the income disparity is that. We also want to look at the income levels. Again, as Representative Causer said, we have the rural population up there is the median income is 20% below that of the state. But if you look at this table again, if you look at the top two graphs, basically what that shows is the cost factor. One is the associate degrees, the other one is just the part-time student's tuition. But in all cases, you'll see that the community colleges are considerably lower than that of the other. And we have no access, that is, rural Pennsylvania has no access to low-cost education, but yet the families up there are earning 20% less than the rest of Pennsylvania. So the amount of disposable income that those people have to put goes more toward education, and hence it does decrease the amount of the number of the participation rate in Pennsylvania. Let me talk about a little bit about, you may be questioning is that how would a rural community college operate? And let me just spend a little bit of time on that. We had, the Blaisdell Foundation funded a study, and we were able to bring in the Rural Community College Alliance. And they brought in a team of people which basically took a look at the area. They looked at the budget legislative repairs report. They looked at all that data. They looked at the data that we had amassed, and they also looked at. They spent 3 days talking with legislative leaders, business leaders, and education leaders, and they came back and said, without question, that we could do a rural regional community college up in this area. Regional community colleges are not all that unique anymore. At least it was unique to me. Even Harrisburg Community College and Butler County Community College are two examples in which they've reached out. And how this works, I think, is how I can tell you probably the best way to tell you how this works is we are currently doing a prototype of a regional community college right now. We have with the Educational Consortium of the Upper Allegheny and Gannon University in partnership. We are currently running, and have been running for the last 2 years, programs which are located in 5 or 6 different locations, which live faculty members that are going to those, which goes to those locations. And we do that by interactive television. And so now that a student from Emporium or from Cuttersport, they can actually get an associate degree from Gannon University. We're running 2 associate degrees, one in business and one in liberal arts. And so a person from that area, because of this interactive television, can so anyway, so that's how, excuse me, let me look at my notes here, see where I am here. One of the things we have, middle states will require that we have a central campus. But that becomes less important than what the regional outreach would be. What's focused here is the regional outreach. We have 11 counties to service. What we want to do is to be able to get within 30 miles of every of every student there. We can do that by reaching out and having this regional approach. There are, up in our area, there are, let me look at my notes here, there are 6 ATV, vocational schools, or what now called, what you refer as career centers. We also have 4 continuing education centers. All those would become sites that we would have that use for training. The vocational ed is certainly something that is absolutely necessary. That's clear. Costs. We estimate that probably in 4 years we would have a total population of about 1,500 students. The estimated cost of each student is about $10,000. That estimate came from that rural community, the study that was done. That would give us a total budget of about $15 million for that. This would after 4 years. The average student tuition and fees would be about $7 million. We would be requesting $8 million from the state. I know budgets are tight. I realize that. I've been working in the state for 40-some years almost, and budgets have always been tight, and it's difficult. But what I want you to realize is that $8 million that we'd be requesting from the state represents 0.4% of the total allocation that we get, that Pennsylvania gives to post-secondary education. $2 billion is what the total amount is. Okay, so in conclusions, one of the things I would like to emphasize, which again Representative Cosner said, is that Pennsylvania is one of the few states that has not strategically placed community colleges throughout the state. And what I mean by that strategically is that other states like North Carolina have made sure they have learning centers of some sort within 30 miles of every student. I think we've tried to demonstrate that post-secondary education is certainly our current system has not been responsive to rural Pennsylvania. I think the statistics shows that. And that's been at the detriment of the economic vitality of that region. Our economy has been pulled down because of the lack of education. And that weak economy hurts the state. The weakest link the state has, and economically, is rural areas, because we drag the state down. I also want to mention in conclusion that it was 50 years ago, 1963, the Community College Act of Pennsylvania was passed. That passed for the creation, the establishment, and the operation of community colleges. And as Representative Cosner said, in 1971, the state board had recommended 28 community colleges be formed. We now only have half that number. If you take a look at that original, that 1971 master plan, the area that we're talking about, that we would encompass with one community college, there were 3 envisioned there. So this is a very cost-effective way of approaching rural higher education, and I think in a most cost-effective manner. So I thank you for your time and interest, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, thanks, gentlemen. I do have 2 questions. Number one, going back to the funding sources, there are 3 sources that normally will fund the community college: the tuition, student tuition, the state funding, and the county funding.
Right.
So I'm assuming that you're going to have an arrangement whereby each of the counties will be funding this central community college. I just assume that. Would that be correct?
That is not correct. This is what we're asking the state to entertain is a new model, and what's called a state community college model, of which there are 25 states in the union that currently have what are called state community colleges. And what happens is that the state picks up the local share. This happens when you have rural areas that really cannot afford. We don't have the tax base to basically do this.
Okay. I saw that in the bill that
Yes.
that its corporations and other grants in the state would pick up that money. So.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that's why we call it a pilot program, because the current funding mechanism just doesn't work for rural PA,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why we don't have any community colleges. So under this pilot program, we would rely on additional assistance from the state, along with federal funding, along with tuition fees. But we would rely on assistance of the state to actually fund this pilot program.
So let me just make it clear. So what would be the actual cost Is it $10,000 is what a student would have to pay? I mean,
No, I'm sorry. The total cost per student, we're estimating at $10,000 per student.
right, but how much would that student pay for tuition if they were to be enrolled? Do you have a cost?
Uh-huh, I do.
Okay,
Just a second.
yeah.
They would be paying, we took the, they would be paying, wait, see. No, 100, I'm sorry. I have this on a yearly basis, I'm sorry. They'd be paying about $4,500 a year in tuition. And plus, there's another $200 in fees, so it'd be about $4,700. This is and what I'm quoting from, this would be the average tuition in Pennsylvania currently at community colleges.
Okay, now, one of the other issues you're going to be looking at is...
I'm sorry,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. This would be what we would charge, or what we recommend to be
Sure.
charged, which is the average of current.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
The other concern would be the central location, or the location. That means you have to have a building, which would be available for 1,500 students, so that in itself could be a challenge unless you already have
I think that's
a location
I think that's
picked out.
how that's an important thing to note with this regional community college concept. We're not going across this region building buildings of any sort. There does have to be a central location because there has to be a central office, but it could be anywhere in that particular region, and then we would utilize existing buildings such as community vocational technical schools, existing educational facilities to partner with to provide these locations for these community college classes. So we're not going across 11 counties and building buildings because certainly wouldn't have the
wherewithal
need or the
to do
financial
that.
resources to do that.
Well, thank you, and at this time, the chair recognizes Chairman Roebuck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, I think this is a interesting proposal, and it's something that meets a clear need. I do have a couple of questions. I would note that you mentioned that the funding formula doesn't work for rural students. It doesn't work for any students at this point in reality. Certainly, the pattern of one-third, one-third, one-third has, with the local sponsorships deteriorating, with the state commitment deteriorating, the weight has fallen more and more on individual students. So that I sit on a community college board in my community college of Philadelphia. Half of the cost of the education comes from the students,
Right.
as the other levels fall. So you're pretty close to that model, but that's not a good model because it means that many students with limited resources can't access the education because they don't have the necessary funds to do that.
Right.
That's true whether you live in rural Pennsylvania or in urban Pennsylvania, or even in suburban Pennsylvania. I just note that. The other thing that I also wanted to raise is I noted just glancing at the legislation, and I understand this is a work in progress, that you have set the terms of trustees at 3 years, which is different from the way that trustees are structured at every other community college in the state, who are given 6-year terms. And I wondered why you went to a 3-year model as opposed to a 6-year model.
You know why that was?
I think only because I deal with other not-for-profit boards. We did not look at what the community college's board structure was. Most not-for-profit boards that I sit on have 3-year rolling terms.
And I will tell you, it is a work in progress because
Sure.
even working with the senator on the Senate version, we're looking at possible changes in language dealing with the trustees in particular.
And then just one final observation. One thing that certainly I have advocated for the college I sit on is that we ought to be more invested in distance learning. And I hope that you would put that into this process, that one way, certainly, that you could bring a college in any area of the state up to further, to quick levels of speed is by using distance learning. And indeed, there are all sorts of resources that exist now to do that.
We're currently
So
during
I would
that-
hope that
I'm
that
sorry.
might be incorporated into this
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah, as I said, that we're currently doing with the Gannon program that we're working, operating on. And we'll operate simultaneously one course in 5 or 6 different locations using interactive television. Yep.
Okay.
I do think.
And we would, and we also have, we have those 6 vocational centers and the 5 community education councils there too. In addition to that, there are 50 high schools. And we have cooperative agreements with those 50 high schools, and they can fill in too. All, again, using educational technology.
Mr. Chairman, your points are all well taken, and I think that distance learning is crucial to this whole pilot
Yeah.
program.
Good. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman and recognizes Representative Rapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see by the map, this certainly encompasses the district that I represent, the counties that I represent, who are truly underserved, and we have no community college, as the testimony has stated. I go back to yesterday when we were talking about the Keystone exams, and Mr. Chairman, you acknowledged the importance of community college for further training if students are struggling with the Keystone exams or wanting to further their education. And I think the committee acknowledges that those community colleges are vital for students who are not going on to a 4-year college, but if they need further training, certainly those community colleges are vital. And if you look at the map of the intent of this legislation for the community college, our citizens, our constituents, many of them travel many miles, and we now know that the cost of travel is going to be even more expensive with the increase in gas and diesel fuel. So that's going to add on to the cost of our constituents trying to receive higher education. So that in and of itself is going to add to the cost of somebody in rural Pennsylvania trying to further their education. This is not a concept that was just developed, recently. I know that Mr. McDowell and the senator and Mr. Vicini, who is in the audience, who's over there out of my line of vision, but they have been working on this and laying the groundwork with the communities and the counties within this area for a couple years now. And I believe that our counties, our communities are embracing this concept. It is vital to rural PA and to this area of the state. This is an issue that we've looked at for years. This is not just suddenly upon us that we're coming to the General Assembly and asking members of the Education Committee and the House and Senate to embrace this concept. This is a concept that I've been in meetings for years about, including our former congressman. This is one of his priorities was a community college in northwestern PA. And we've been looking at this for years. This is not something that is suddenly upon us. But those of us who have been involved in education in that northwestern part of the state, this has been a concern of us for many years. And I appreciate Representative Clauser bringing this bill forth, the senator bringing the bill forth. This is a fairness issue to our rural constituents. And just like basic education funding, just like special education funding, I believe this is a fairness issue that our constituents deserve, that the same opportunities, those equal opportunities in education, just like the rest of the state. We are an underserved area. And under equal opportunity, I believe that my constituents deserve that same equal opportunity, which is, again, going to be even more costly because of the cost of transportation. But I encourage the members of this committee to to give a positive look and vote on this piece of legislation. It is vital to northwestern Pennsylvania and the counties that Representative Causer, myself, and others serve. We need this legislation so that our constituents have that same equal opportunity in education. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair thanks the gentlelady and recognizes Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Causer, for bringing this forward. Understanding exactly what Representative Rapp is describing with respect to the treatment of northwestern Pennsylvania, considering the universe of higher education opportunities, as somebody who represents a community college in Luzerne County, with the county commitment significant in order to be able to provide the education, and also representing families and school districts that are served by the Northampton Community College, it will be a complicated conversation to tell those folks that their county or school district obligation will continue while the Commonwealth will fund the share of the cost related to the local side of this equation without a commitment from the counties. And I'm just wondering, when we consider the population of these 11 counties, I don't know what that total is, but my guess is it's probably somewhere equal to the population of some of the counties that already have a community college. I'm wondering, have the counties even been approached or considered a local participation with respect to this established community college?
The counties in this region have been a partner in this effort, but the small rural counties that we're talking about, Cameron, for example, has a total population of 5,000 people. We're talking very, very small counties. The total population of this 11-county region is 450,000 people. So very small counties, very small budgets, to be honest with you, budgets that are unable to to fully fund a community college like this. I understand what you're talking about with the local share that counties are funding right now in areas that there are community colleges, and that point is well taken. And perhaps we need to have a discussion about how we fund community colleges across the state, as part of this discussion. But in an area where you have very small counties that there is no way for them to come up with a local share to be able to fund this. That's why we're calling this a pilot program, that we need some additional state assistance to be able to launch this.
But so you understand, I'm not suggesting that any one of these 11 counties head out on their own to do this, but you just declared that the population of those counties is in excess of the population of Luzerne County. And so I'm wondering why there can't be some sort of a proportional participation by the counties. I understand the nature of what you're trying to do. I get it. I just think that it's going to be a complicated conversation when you consider the totality of counties that participate financially, or in the other model where the school districts participate. And my suspicion is that there's not too many counties in the state or school districts that you wouldn't want to be relieved of the burden of participating in the cost for a community college. I welcome the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative
Can
Carroll.
I add to that? If you go back to the Legislative and Budget and Finance Committee report, the study that they did demonstrates and shows why those other 14 community colleges have not been formed. And the reason that they've not been formed is they don't have the tax base. I mean, so there is data that shows that there is not the tax base that Luzerne County or another county might have.
So you're suggesting the state needs to do more for community colleges across the board?
This is a different model, which 25 other states, I might add, in the United States, which again comes out of that report. There's 25 other states that have adopted that state community college model.
Fair enough. I have a feeling, though, that with the budget that's on the horizon for next June, with the numbers that we're looking at, and the shortfall that's on the horizon, probably in excess of $1 billion, this is going to be a very complicated conversation, my suspicion.
I understand.
Chair thanks the gentleman. At this time, we're going to have to end the conversations because we only have this room until 10 o'clock. There are 3 more members who would like to ask questions, and we'll try to work those in at a later time. We may be asking to come back at a later time because I feel the conversations and the discussion has to continue. But we do have another committee group that's entitled to the room. So we are now adjourned, and we look forward to reviewing this issue in the very near future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.